The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome Dennis Hogan. Dennis, it's nice having you again.
Thank
you.
You
were a county attorney at one time. I thought we'd talk a little bit about your experience as a county attorney and all the problems that have happened in the last 2 years.
Okay.
Tell us whenever you want to start. Maybe a couple of good years you had.
Well, yeah, I was elected 3 terms, non-consecutive. So I won after the 2010 election and after the 2014 and 16 elections.
Right.
So, but I lost in 2012 and in 2018. So now I'm in the private sector, seeing it from the other side as a defense attorney and going back to what I've known for many years, which is injury law, and doing that. But unfortunately, the guy who replaced me got into such a big amount of trouble that I was actually asked to think about what was going on. Because, I remember I left there and I said to somebody, this is the last time I'm thinking about this office. Right. Goodbye. It's nice. That was it. I thought I'd leave it in somebody else's hands. But, it started to make the paper and people were asking me about it and WMUR wanted to interview me about it. And so I have had to think about what happened and how it went. So.
Well, I know it was a lot different from 2010 when we had a supermajority and everything, and the whole Nashua contingent was 22 out of 27 or 28 openings there.
Right.
And you and the executive board and everything on the county were Republicans.
Right. And then it was the issue was, the state doesn't have and the county doesn't have money to spend like it used to. And so what can you do to reduce costs? And we were able to cut costs, first 6% in the first year and then 2% more in the second year that I was making budgets. But, things change and you got to adjust with that. So when I got back into it, what we saw was, things in Manchester had exploded quite a bit. In terms of crime, and Nashua was a little more level, up but a little more level, and so we switched people from Nashua and put them up in Manchester to adjust. But continuing to follow the numbers, we saw that the whole county was going up in terms, driven by Manchester, of course, but the whole county was increasing the amount of cases, and so as I progressed through those 4 years, we kept asking for more and more resources, and then they put felonies first on us, which, was sold to you guys as legislators up in Concord. I don't remember if you were, what years you're there and what years you weren't there.
The same 3 years you were.
Okay. So the same 3 terms, right. So they sold you on the idea that, we can save money. We got this felonies first thing that's going to save us money. The administrative judge comes in and gives you this idea. Well, we looked at what the program was and he says, and I thought, okay, as a grand plan for the entire government, that may save money.
Yeah.
But it's taking some activity that's going to be in the circuit courts and switching it directly to the superior courts. That's going to be more work in the superior courts, clearly.
Yeah.
Well, the courts didn't buy that. They told you that was nonsense. They told you that I was incorrect. They told you, and we had legislators telling us, looking at us and essentially accusing us of lying.
Oh, really?
When we explained that that's how it was going to work. So we asked for additional people and we were told no. In fact, the last budget I had was a budget that made a lot of news because it was asking for a lot of money, which, made me blanch. I don't like to ask for money, but it was my responsibility to say, this is what you're going to need to do the work. I got to ask you for the money. You change the system and fine for the whole overall thing, but you've shifted it onto us. Well, they didn't believe us. They didn't believe me. They didn't believe us. And then I lost the election, and so somebody else came in. He had his own problems, of course. I mean, asking for, misdemeanor cases from Merrimack when you just need to have, when you have trouble enough doing the felony cases. And that was a stupid thing to do. He did stupid things like not back his people when they made deals that he didn't understand and he didn't know about it. He just, instead of finding out what those deals were, which is what he should have done, and then explained them. He just threw his people under the bus. So he's a disaster. And, John Coughlin will be a great replacement. But in addition to that, there was too much work. And so that when the Attorney General's office came in after the chiefs of police gave a no confidence vote on the new guy, they came in and they said, oh, there's all this backup of work, whatever that means. So what did they do? They brought in the 4 additional attorneys that I had asked for in the first place.
But was it under their budget?
It was, sure, yeah, for the time being. Just until, Hillsborough in the next budget could add 4 more attorneys to do the work that was predictably there. 2 years previous, Had they just listened to me in my office, Hillsborough County wouldn't have been so embarrassed. And it was an embarrassment. To do the wrong thing is just an embarrassment. And to be warned about it and then do the wrong thing is even more of an embarrassment. And that's what happened. And, they generally got to use the person who replaced me as county attorney as the scapegoat, because he did all those dumb things in addition. But that part of it was not his fault. Yeah. You can separate. Yes, he did do things that deserve for him to be replaced. But there's also things that had nothing to do with him. Right. Whether I was there or he was there, they needed 4 additional attorneys, plus the added staff that goes around 4 attorneys. They needed those people to do the work. And now they have them, and now they progress on. And of course, they need, with better leadership, they'll do even better. But
we have a good Republican running for that office.
Yeah, John Coughlin, the reason he is going to do great is because he brings to the table things that you need. Experience. He's already done it for 2 years. He knows the county attorney's office.
And he was a judge,
He was a judge, so he has that gravitas, so to speak, that he speaks with authority. If there's anything that I can look at myself and say, Dennis, this is what you didn't do well, it was that I didn't speak with authority to people. Now, I tell you the right thing. If you don't listen to me, I don't know what to do about that. But the fact of the matter is, it happened. That I would say something to people and they would look at me like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm like, so I have to get somebody else to come tell you what's the correct thing to do. But he, I think, will speak with that authority, and that'll be very helpful. I certainly hope that people listen to him when he speaks. It would be certainly helpful to them. He's not going to make things up. He's been a judge. He's been an attorney for what does he say, 40 years in his
career.
He's been a JAG. He's been over Iraq and helped the Iraqis, build a
legislative. And he just retired as a judge, and then he's decided to come back into an active job, I guess. And his wife's running as a representative in Auburn, not Auburn.
That's right, Amherst. Yeah.
Amherst.
Right, and she was the county register of deeds. Right. And so they know county government, and he even told the story. I listened to him speaking a couple of times. He heard what I was doing in terms of going before the commissioners and saying, "Hey, I've got a problem. You need to address it." And I'm sort of ringing the bell, but not being listened to. He told it in story. He came to home, and she came home and told him the story of how Dennis was trying to get him to wake up, and they weren't waking up. So. I appreciate him telling that story. It's interesting to know that happened, that people did hear it. But.
So you're through with public service. You got your own business now as an injury lawyer?
Yeah. It's the same, technically on paper, the same business that I've had since 2005. Oh. When I got elected in 2010, I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to get elected a bunch of times. But then 2012 came and showed me that I wasn't going to get elected every single time. And so when I returned in 2014, after the 2014 election, I kept my fingers in the injury game. Yeah, and people would call me for, I had a client who was told by an attorney outside of New Hampshire that they should look for an attorney who's in the county. Yeah. And so they literally Googled county attorney, injury. And my name came up because I'm associated with those 3 things. And they called me and I was like, well, okay, yeah, I can handle your case. Yeah, sure. So what I would do while I was county attorney, I had those things in my home office, and I would, on the weekends or nights, I would do the work that needed to be done to do them. And one of them, actually 2 of them. One of them still ongoing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's set for trial in January. And another one, I what did I do? I got another attorney involved with me. When I was no longer county attorney, I actually got more involved in handling the case so that we could get it settled, and we got it settled. So the transition from being county attorney to not having employment was a lot easier this time around because I kept a few things in the bag.
That's it.
And I got criticized a little bit. They tried to make an issue out of it in the press. I know you can tell what the Democrats do. They sniff around to see what a weakness is, and they get somebody to write a story about this. Right? They push stories. And one of the stories that got pushed on the media was, we have part-time county attorneys. Well, it was never a part-time job.
Yeah.
I showed up at in the morning and was there all day. It's a full work day. But I told them in the paper, I says, it makes sense for me to keep something because I don't know that I'm going to win every time.
Right.
It's just not. It's almost not even my. It didn't even depend on my work product. I mean, I did a fine job the whole time I was there, all 6 years, and I lost to a guy who wasn't even practicing attorney because the Democrats just went in there and went, we got to vote for the Democrats. Yeah. And you get what you get. And they got, the party should have been thinking about that. They never should have put somebody on the ballot because that's how we got on. They never should have put somebody on the ballot who wasn't even practicing law.
Right.
That's just irresponsible. And it just goes to show you how irresponsible the Democratic Party is in New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, I think we need better organization, and I think Steve Stepanek is pushing on that through Sununu, and I don't know how well he's influencing the whole thing. On the Concord side, I think they're doing fairly well. On the county side, I'm not sure. I haven't. Have you?
Organizing what now?
Organizing the administration, the different services.
Well, the thing is with counties, they're all so different. Hillsborough will often say in county meetings, well, Hillsborough is different. And the others will say, oh, no, it's not that different. Well, it is. Hillsborough is the county with the two biggest cities.
Right.
So right away,
it's the biggest.
It's different. Our biggest law enforcement agency is Manchester.
Right.
Whereas the biggest law enforcement agency in Coos County is Coos County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, right.
I think. I mean, one of the counties is like that. Maybe not Coos, but because I don't know what's in Coos. But they're totally different. It's a very different animal. Hillsborough is very different. I did a report on Stratford after the investigator in Hillsborough looked into the accusations by their county registry of deeds. He had been sort of politically pushed out of his position, and he was angry at one of the commissioners who had also held that position for a while, and he was making a beef about what happened with the money. So we actually looked into the money that was going through the registry of deeds over in Stratford, and the investigator found that Stratford's way of handling money was really not really good. It was basically they were given a pot of money. The department was just given a pot of money, and then they would return some money, and there was nothing specific about where it was being spent. Whereas in Hillsborough, it's down to the dollar in each line. It's not done that way. So when the investigator just asked simple questions about where's this money, where's that money, there wasn't really a good answer. And so we wrote a report that basically said, and then because they wrote a letter back saying, we didn't know what we were talking about, but whatever. I didn't care. We made the report. It was the truth, and it was, I told the guy he can do what he wants with it, but nothing ever came of it. It's just the way they are. Different counties work differently. So
counties are somewhat independent then?
They are. They're independent of each other, certainly.
So nobody does an auditing type of for the
each one
place.
Gets audited on its own. Now, what kind of audit they order, I don't know. But Hillsborough goes through an audit every once in a while.
Right.
Sure.
I remember some of those things.
Yeah. And they do different things in terms of their prisons or jails and the corrections departments. They have different attitudes. Sullivan County doesn't like drug court and has a good program at their jail, whereas Hillsborough went in big for the drug courts and took longer to go into the jails. But speaking of jails, I'm glad just happened to slip with jails. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about is one of the things that they've changed. Again, the court instituting these changes is really messing things up. We had a program in Hillsborough to get people in there in the jail and then push them into drug rehab. And we also have in Nashville mental health court, right? But they intentionally changed this with the sort of motto, or this big crisis they tried to create, make like it was happening. The ACLU tried to claim that there's this big problem in that somebody with a bail of $50 couldn't get bailed out. Why are we holding people because they're so poor?
Yeah.
Well, I ask you this simple question: why does a person not have $50? If you ask that simple question, you will lead to an answer that says, oh, wait a minute, this is a person with a problem, right? I mean, why would you not have $50? You probably have a drug problem. You may have a mental health problem. And what are you going to do with those people? And the ACLU's answer is put them out on the street. Hurry up and get them out of jail. Well, that's not. I mean, that's a perfect example of a single issue special interest group who doesn't stop and think about all the other things that are happening. Leaders have to think about the whole thing.
Right.
They can't just take from one, just don't follow one, special interest right down their rabbit hole, because you'll end up with a big problem. And so what you have now is a system with no bail. So somebody comes before the court, they were urinating in Manchester, and they got pulled off the street. The court gives them a date to come back later. And sets them back out. And before you know it, and you've seen this in the papers, the chief of police is saying, before we're done with the paperwork from the first one, they're having another one.
Yeah.
And that's a problem in that respect, and it annoys people in the respect that it is dirtying the city. But I want to focus on the idea that that person is not getting the help that they need. They're not in the jail, and everyone says you can't jail people because of their mental health problems. Jailing people doesn't help them with their drug problems. We all understand that. We've all been saying it for years. Everybody in government gets that, okay? If you don't hold them there to say to them, we need to get you that help, they are never going to get that help. They're not going to show up somewhere voluntarily and say, well, on occasion they do, right? You get the fire stuff, the safe stations. But in general, these people aren't going to, especially the ones that are committing crimes. That's the whole.
So you're saying
they're not going to. They need to be stopped at that point, and services given to them and held until they are, getting those services. So and let them be released in good time, with them getting
after
the help
they get the
need.
service,
yes,
to address their problem,
address the problem,
mental health or drugs or
because in the mental
whatever.
health, most of the people with the mental health, there's some program that can have a hope of helping them deal with it. I'm not going to be a doctor on TV, but there's something. The drug problems, they need time away from the street. For, number one, to not do the drugs, but there's also programs that they can be, that have insisted that they go to. And yes, people will say, well, they're not going to quit until they want to quit. Well, you know what? If you're not putting them behind bars, if you're not incarcerating them, then they're never going to feel like they want to quit. If it's just a revolving door, you're going to have that problem. And I think this is the problem. These ideas came to us from this guy from Colorado who is advising the court, these felonies first and these kind of ideas. They've all been tried in other places, these bigger cities. How are they working? You look at Los Angeles, rows and rows and rows. What used to be Skid Row is now an entire. I mean, there's people who go out on their bicycles. You can see this on YouTube. They could put their bicycle camera on and then ride next to pathways, and it's just all these encampments. And you can't tell me it's just, especially here in New Hampshire, you can't tell me it's a homeless problem. People want to just say, it's homeless. There isn't enough Look, people can live together. They can, room with people that they know. You're not homeless unless somebody doesn't want to live with you. Because somewhere someone will cut a piece of their property and say, this, you can stay here. So they got to get those services. And the courts have messed up by getting in the legislature to no bail this no bail program. They got to bring back bail, get people their services, hope, and start cleaning up the streets.
As you're saying that when they go in for their bail hearing, that they get a lawyer appointed for them?
It depends on their. It depends on whether they're likely to be held, whether they are entitled to a lawyer.
Oh, I see. So the fact that they're not going to be held, they don't get a lawyer, which seems to be
held after a sentence, or a year. Well, actually, that's not the way to say it. You get a lawyer if your sentence could be more than a year. So misdemeanors. That's why some of your drunk driving cases are misdemeanors, because they didn't want to give a lawyer to everybody who had a drunk driving.
Well, no, but the fact that you want to have these people helped, what would happen to give them health? How would they be able to have being heard by the drug court or the mental health court?
The mental health court is basically the person's identified by the local prosecution. And they say, well, let's just put this person in the mental health court. So they go before a judge, and the judge is saying, instead of the usual disposition, which is, this is your punishment, goodbye, see you later. It's, okay, you're going to go to this National Mental Health, and then you're going to come back in a week and tell us how you're doing. That's in essence, that's the same way the drug court works. The drug court, however, is for somebody who's already been through so much, and this is the last stop before they're sent to prison. What was on its way to helping people for the lower ones was the program that they had, and I can't remember the name of the program in Hillsborough County, but Hillsborough County had just instituted a new drug program within the jail that was for people who had just
I remember them talking about it, because they were talking about it when
they were the superintendent and the myself and the sheriff all got together and sort of discussed it, and we decided that the best thing to do was to have it in the jail, and then he looked at how we could have. But that meant that they had to be sentenced to some jail time. Is that no, not necessarily. This could be people who would. I think you might be right. You might be right. I'm a little foggy on that, whether they had to be sentenced or not. But you could get started in. I think you could take baby steps in the program just if you were being held. I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about it. How do you get that started again? The thing is, they had no customers. They've all left. Well, there's no bail, so why would somebody doesn't have to think about what they're saying? You have to go back and then have some exceptions to that no bail thing. If this person has a problem. The way bail used to work was that the judge would set an amount that they knew would get the person to come back. Now, if you were very poor and you had hardly any money, you wouldn't set a high bail. Yeah. And if you were very rich and you thought, well, that's not going to keep you, he would set it higher and higher and higher until you said, oh, that's enough for me to come back. So it wasn't like they were saying to a very poor person, $1,000 a bail. And the person would say, oh, I can never make it. And they looked at a rich person at $1,000 bail for the same thing, and the guy goes, no problem, and he's out. That's not how it worked. The AHCLU tried to convince you that was how it worked, but that was not how it worked. The judge could adjust it. The judge was trying to get you to come back and make sure you weren't a danger to anybody. If you're a danger to somebody, that's entirely. Is this something? And now they changed. So they worked on this bail reform, and all they did was for the adjustment was to come up with this crazy idea that now if you need bail, the state will pay for it out of a fund. Well, it doesn't change anything. There's nothing coming out of the pocket of the person for them to come back. So you're just going to see, if you don't change it back, you're just going to see more and more people living on the street. Somebody else has to be made aware of it. I think that's why we have to change some of the attitudes that some of our legislators have. Are you in there now? No. When you get back, you're running though, right? No. Oh, you're not running. Okay. Well, when the people get back, and they're thinking about legislation, they need to be aware that there's parts of the government up there that will handpick who they put in front of you to testify. You got to make sure that every what they call stakeholder is involved. Because when you pass this bail reform, every county attorney was against it, but we never got invited to anything discussing it. No. And they were blocked out of even discussions about repairing it when there was everybody kind of complaining about how it was. No county attorney was invited.
Huh.
Yeah, ridiculous. Even Democrat county attorneys like Tom over in Stratford, he had to fight his way into those meetings because they don't want you to know. The ACLU is just trying to push their agenda, which I can't figure out exactly what it is, but it's leading to chaos.
Well, they never see that, or they never publicize that. That's hidden, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they're dragging the young media people around by the nose. The young media people, they show up to write, stories, and they don't know anything. And so they're just told, oh, this is, when you've got somebody who's on the case all the time, they have an advantage. You see the same thing with unions in the local jurisdictions, like when I was on the school board. Unions have an advantage because you show up to these things knowing nothing, just being a citizen who wants to save a buck, and they can snow you because you don't know much. So.
Well, if you were attorney now for the county, would you try to bring that up, or do you think?
The thing is, I thought the county attorneys. I mean, I would with the other county attorneys, and we worked together. And I endorsed everything they said about it, and we tried to warn people before it was happening. But they didn't listen to us. So in that respect, I tried not to get out and lecture the legislators. I was hoping that they would,
they should.
I was hoping that they would hear all the sources and then make good decisions, and we could live with them. But I was.
Well, if they don't hear all
I came away from the whole thing disappointed, that they didn't hear everything. That people intentionally kept certain sources from them, and that they ended up making some.
Well, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. That's true.
Well,
that's
Dennis, we've run out of time.
Okay.
But
before we go, can I tell you why I have a shiner? I was using a hatchet. I hit a piece of wood, and it jumped up and hit me in the face.
Well, you're lucky you didn't put your eye out.
I am lucky I didn't put my eye out. You're absolutely right. believe me, I felt stupid once it happened. That's why I have the shiner. It's nothing else.
Okay. So it never got hit by anybody.
No.
Okay. But let's hope that whoever gets elected as a county attorney goes with some of the other ones and faces some of these problems, because you're right. We can do a lot for the people, but these people are helpless. They need somebody to lead them to it. They won't go themselves.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.